Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm here with Alyssa and Jen, and Alyssa has recently started barrel racing your horse, but you've kind of run into some issues. So could you tell me a little bit about what's going on with your horse?
A lot with his anxiety, with pressure. He just like gives up and just starts getting really dangerous, like launching forward, throwing his head up, bolting, and yeah.
And have you come off of him before?
Yes, many times because of that.
When we were tacking him up, it kind of seemed like you were a bit hesitant to kind of get on him and show me where he's at. And so could you just tell me about like how you're feeling about getting on him now?
I just feel like if I even ask him to do something, he'll freak out. Like loping, he'll just freak out.
So you feel like you could get on him and walk and trot and that'd probably be okay? Is that on a loose rein or contact? And then when you canter him, that's when he would blow up?
Yeah, basically.
Okay. And then did I hear she was having some trouble backing up, or maybe you guys were trying a backing up exercise? Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit about that, Jen? So Jen recently started helping her, kind of handed over from a different instructor. So could you just tell me about what your thoughts are on that?
Yeah, so there was one day we wanted to work on a backing exercise through the barrels, and it just seemed like as he was backing through, he was getting more anxious with the aids, and then his answer started being leaping forward. So it just seems like the more we work with him, it's when you go to close in the pressures from the leg and hand to get the maneuvers you need for the turns on the barrels, then he just can't handle it and reacts and leaps forward. So we've been working on, trying to take him out of some of the harsher equipment that she's had. This is like one of the setups that she had, taking him into snaffles and working on long, low stretching exercises, things like that. But that still comes back when you need to put your leg and hand on. It's like he kind of reverts back and just goes, I can't handle it, and just explodes.
Yeah, that makes sense. And initially I was thinking she was going to ride him for me and show me. Then I realized you're getting unconfident about riding him. And that's very understandable. And so, and I don't think I'd realized how bad it was getting. But one of the things that we're going to change, and you were already kind of heading this way, is we're going to put a regular like snaffle on him. And this setup is a lot of pressure. So a lot of people would think you would have more control over a horse that's getting dangerous with more pressure. The rope noseband, a very thin mouthpiece on the snaffle here, if you guys can see it. And then the chain, when you use this, that's going to add chain pressure there, but it's adding pressure here too. And so that ends up being a lot of pressure. And so we're going to do less there, put just a basic snaffle on him. And the idea is that if we don't start the pressure, hopefully this also doesn't cause him to get that afraid of anything. Because I think some of the problems are coming from that. So as you guys know, I like to do a little bit of groundwork before messing with them. So we got a saddle switched out to one that hopefully I can fit in a little better. I'm just going to check him out with just some basics here. This horse, it sounds like he has done a lot of different things. He's done some eventing. He's done some barrel racing. He's done some kids lessons programs. And so he probably has a bit of confusion in his understanding of things. And so I'm just going to build a little bit of a language with him here. Just test out a few things. Just kind of see how well he can kind of understand pressure and build a little bit of connection. Because they were saying he has trouble in the backup, there's a little lick and chew. I want to just make sure we have a good backup here on the ground. That feels like that's working pretty good. So right off the bat, my impression of him on the ground is I don't feel like he's at all trying to be bad, but I also don't feel like he's trying to connect with me. I feel like he's just kind of tuning out and just kind of going through motions. And so one of the things that I want him to do is just get a little bit more aware that there's a conversation happening. So you can see I'm going to do a little bit of the game I call the 3-circle game here. And I want him to just shape up around me a little bit more. You can see it's like easy for him to just do something and move his feet rather than think about how I'm asking him to move. There's a little lick and chew there. I'll let him get a little relief there. But if he's already circling me on the ground and he's got his ribs and hip kind of into me just a little bit, that tells me he's already in a little bit of a defensive mindset, and I want him in a little bit more of a relaxed, willing to kind of think towards me, more connected mindset. So watch here. If I just let him go, do you see how his hip is a little closer to me than his front end? And his nose is to the outside if I don't control that at all? Do you see that position? It's subtle, but it's there. And so we're going to try to reverse that a little bit. And this is one of the recovery exercises that I'm going to do with him when I'm sitting on him, is I'm going to teach him an exercise that I call relax rein. And I'm going to ask him to just bend on a circle. So I want him to understand that he can go forward, but he needs to do it with a bend. That's going to be the goal, because he's used to going straight. And so the opposite of like lurching forward when he gets bothered is bending and softening and relaxing, right? And so what I'm going to try to do is, before he's in a bind under saddle, there's better, that's better. I like it. Very good. There was a little change right there. I don't know if you could see that. He kind of just moved around me, and then I don't know if you heard that, he just blew out and just relaxed a little bit. So we're starting that change that I'm looking for him to make here. Hey, if you guys are enjoying this video and you would like to see more detailed training videos and follow my program online with me as your coach, where you can ask me questions anytime, I can do that for you on my Patreon page. So I'll leave a link in the comments and in the description below. Let's get back to the video. Good. So you can see, like right here, he felt pressure in that backup, and so his answer is to go forward. And so I'm trying to set it up here to where he can find right there, find a little bit of relief backing up. So he ran into more pressure while he was trying to go forward, and when he finally took a couple steps backward, I got really soft with him, versus me trying to do a lot of things to get him to back up quickly. Does that make sense? Because if he's feeling bound up in the backup, it's going to be challenging. And see, he's getting grumpy about this pressure, but he's got to understand that he's got to bend around me, because when I'm sitting on him, I'm going to ask him to bend around my inside leg. And I'm also doing it with a little bit more pressure because I want to warm up strong to ride soft. Does that make sense? So I'm going to try to ask him for some more challenging things here on the ground, so that when I'm on his back, I'm a little bit softer, a little bit politer, so that feels easier. Do you see where I'm going with that? Yep. If you have any questions on anything I'm doing, just holler at me while we're going here. Like there, he just walked off and just threw his butt like right into me. So it's like, nope, we don't do that. If I was at home with this horse, I honestly would probably do like 4 or 5 days of groundwork before I'd even ride him. Just because there's a lot of things that we could get better here on the ground before getting on him. I'm going to keep going, here, because I'm only here today. But I just want you to understand that idea. Like, groundwork can be really helpful for a horse like this, of really learning some better positions and accepting control and pressure a little bit more. So you can see he had some resistance going into the canter, and then it took a lot to get him to slow down out of the canter. There we go. So every time it's like horses think in terms of like categories. So asking him for a canter transition on the ground is not exactly the same as asking for a canter transition under saddle, but it's similar enough that there's going to be some feedback there. So my two forms of feedback were, he didn't have a lot of willingness to go into it, and it took a lot to get him to slow back down. So on the ground, I'm going to test that and make sure I can get him to go up and down easier before I try it while I'm sitting on him. Much better. And let's see what it takes for him to stop. So he's not sure about the stop cue. It's like when I bring my life down, he doesn't really think about stopping. And then we'll finish. See how there, that little move he just did right there, while everything about me was saying go backward, he chose to lurch forward. He does that because it's the same horse. So his response when he feels pressure is to lurch forward. And so catching him right there was a very achievable thing to do. And that moment, those are those little moments that are going to pay off big dividends when we're sitting on his back. Again, if he's going to do that on the ground, like, not a surprise that he's going to think about doing that under saddle. And I think, even though that wasn't how I wanted to canter, I think practicing bringing him all the way back down. Our relief is in the backup, like practicing that moment of flowing into the backup. Now, it would be way easier if I asked him to back up from a standstill, but I'm trying to get him to stop and then I ask him to back up. That's a more difficult scenario, just like riding. Like if you're just standing still doing nothing and you go into a backup, that should be simpler than going from a canter to a stop into a backup. Does that make sense to you? And so I'm putting him in a more difficult situation on purpose. Like I could just be practicing, just asking him to back up. But you see how easy that was? So I'm putting him in a harder situation to see if he can still think through the pressure and give me the correct answer. All right, I'm going to test him, I think, with one more thing, and then we're going to put the snaffle on him. Like he's slightly annoyed by that, but this is a way, imagine like this is for you too, Reagan, with your thoroughbred. It's one thing to ask them to lower their head under no duress. It's another thing to lower their head under some duress. And so you can build, it's important to build depth of understanding to the things that you're trying to do by, once you feel like they know it, now you go, okay, what's a way I can make this harder? Let me give you an example. Let's say you're training a puppy dog and your puppy dog, you taught it to heel walking around the living room. So you walk around the living room and your puppy dog heels by you and wherever you go, they stay right here. That's great. Does that mean you can go to a dog park and they'll stay right here? Does that make sense? You see what I'm saying? That would be much harder, right? Like, could you walk down the street or even just outside in a bigger area? Could they still be there? If somebody could do that, if they could go to a town in a busy shopping center where there's people everywhere and that dog still just stays right here and ignores other dogs, ignores other people coming at them, and they just stay right by you, that would tell you that dog has a depth of understanding of what it's supposed to do right there. Are you picking up what I'm putting down? So as you're developing a horse, you find a baseline to start from, and then you try to build up, and you try to build depth. The depth of it gives you some room for error. For the weather changed, the environment changed, the horse was having a bad day, you're at the show, you're nervous, you're feeling pressure. If you have depth of understanding to something, under duress, the horse can still give you the right answer. Now, a yield that is the very opposite of him lurching forward is yielding his hindquarters. So before I ask him to do anything challenging under saddle, I'm going to see if I can get control over his hindquarters and have some recovery strategies in mind before I try to do it on his back. Does that make sense to you? So I'm using the stirrup like I would my foot. I'm just asking him to step his hip around. And this seems a little bit newer to him. Not that he's never been asked for it, but so I'm gonna start off by just doing a few kind of basic things here. I'm putting in some yields and some recovery strategies that we're gonna need, that while we're just walking around and everything's chill, we're gonna do. Because it seems like he just had too much pressure put on him in too tense of a situation, and it was too much for him, and he had to like react through it. Like he was a little bit overfaced with pressure. And so by me keeping everything slow and low key, so like here, I'm just gonna ask him to yield his hindquarters. And so even the fact that he doesn't really know this hindquarter yield, that's a little bit of a problem. Like that's one thing we're going to want to work on with him, okay? So he's learned to just zone out and go through the motions until it's too much pressure. And so he was a hard horse for me to connect with on the ground because he was like, I've heard it all before. Does that make sense? And so the person that continues working with him is going to have to be very specific about what they do to build his confidence back in the human's leadership. Like right now, he thinks humans don't really have a great plan. That's what my opinion is. I think I was moving him around on the ground for 15, 20 minutes and he just was still relying on himself for answers. He wasn't looking to me for advice. Does that make sense? He wasn't saying like, oh, well, how would you do it? You know, or what would be the better solution here? But I'm trying to build a language with him, but I'm selling, but he's not buying yet. You know what I mean? There's a good noise. But you notice I'm peppering in the yields that we're going to need. So again, the opposite of him lurching forward and taking off is being able to bend him down and take his hindquarters away and do a hindquarter yield. Okay, now right there he thought forward, so I'm not going to go for the backup while he was thinking forward. Now I'll go into the backup and I'll give him relief. And so I'm just layering in proactively positive responses to pressure. That's what I'm trying to do. Because he's not great at them at a walk, especially for his age, okay? And so the idea is that if we get these pretty solid, then if we get under a little bit of duress, we can recover and come back to something he's already good at. Versus me just try to take off with him and see what we got. You know what I mean? Like that wouldn't give me any other strategy. So we need recovery strategies and we need to catch it before things escalate. So let's try a little trot here. And then I don't know how a normal ride goes. I've not seen you guys ride him, so you'll just have to give me some feedback on where you think things are at. How he's looking now, is this better, worse, normal? A little better? Okay. See here, we're going to take those hindquarters away while things are going well. The best time to expose your horse or build depth of understanding is when things are going well. Okay, so again, if we reverse engineer this, what I'm not trying to do is ask him for the hardest thing possible and then trying to be handier than him and fix it. I'm taking things slow and peppering in good layers of understanding to pressure when things are easy and slow. Because when things are slow and easy, it's very easy for me to have my composure. When things get going fast, it gets a lot harder to have really good feel and timing for anybody. Doesn't matter how many horses you've rode or how many horses you've trained. And so that's the idea behind it. So that was a little attitude. So I just picked him up a little bit stronger and then I right away go back to being soft. And I just say, that wasn't the feel that I was looking for. And I also find this interesting because on the ground, he had a little more attitude going left. And then in the saddle, he's got a little more attitude going right. Just a little observation. Recover. He's not in trouble. I'm not punishing him. But I needed to pick him up there and say, no, you didn't offer what I was asking for. You had a little attitude, a little resistance going into that canter departure. And then also notice, I'm not trying to hold him back with two reins. So there's a lot of times that when I work with a horse, they don't escalate to the same level as the other person that was riding the horse does, because I acknowledge their thresholds as soon as I hit them. I acknowledge where there's resistance. I acknowledge when they get uncomfortable very quickly, and I start fixing it right away. I don't like some people call it like trigger stacking or pushing through thresholds. And if you do that, things can escalate to a much more dramatic thing. And so even just the idea of that I'm giving him a loose rein and letting him make a mistake, if he were to lurch and go too fast, I'm not trying to make him, again, reverse engineer this. What if I got on him and held on and said, you're not gonna lurch with me. I'm stronger and handier than Alyssa is. I'm gonna show you how to do this. And I'm not doing that. I'm giving him his head. He can lurch and jump into it if he wants, but he's less likely to do it because he's not feeling as much of a bind, okay? So we did that cantering both ways. Now I'm gonna pick him up and I am gonna put him in a little bit of a bind. Now hopefully it's not a bind to him, but it might be. But now I'm gonna pick him up and ask for a little soft feel. And what's weird, as soon as I did that, I felt more forward out of him. And so he doesn't understand soft feel super well, especially again for his age. This isn't a 3-year-old. I think you said he was 13. And so he probably has a fair bit of history of being pulled on while he's riding around and it not making sense to him. Another thing that I would encourage you guys to do with him is basically you're gonna spend most of your time guiding him around with a neck rein or a direct rein and not riding with contact unless you start the contact by riding on a relaxed rein circle. This is what I call relaxed rein. So I'm bending him and I'm pulling and releasing on this inside rein. And I'm asking him to bend his rib cage and get soft. And then I'm gonna put a feel here on both reins. And I'm asking for forward movement, softness in his rib cage, and vertical flexion. Could you see, Alyssa, how if I just kept doing this for another 20 rides, like we could get this horse softer and softer? Because he actually wants to be pretty soft, more than what I thought on the ground. I'm actually like pretty surprised by it. If I offer him a good deal on this in the saddle, he takes me up on it. And so I think we gotta change the tack. I think that was a big issue for you. And again, I haven't seen you ride him, so it's hard to say exactly what you were doing, but would you feel comfortable getting on him at like walk and trot? Yeah. Okay, so let me show you the things that I'm gonna have you do. So when you get up here, you're gonna relax. You're gonna have the reins like this and you can lift to get shorter on one rein at a time, okay? Then when you need to control him, you're gonna bend him with one rein if you need to control. If he's being good, you can steer him around by neck reining or whatever. But I just don't want you pulling back on both. But I want you to understand how to go from riding forward, how to go from riding around forward like this to reaching down and bending him and asking him to walk on a little circle. And see how I'm pulling and releasing on that rein, getting him to hold that bend. So he's bending through his ribs and hindquarters, and he's giving me slack in this inside rein. So I pick it up and I let it go. This is how you can create a nice soft horse. This is a recovery strategy. Things get going a little bit faster, you don't like how they feel, you recover before they escalate. And that requires you to read your horse and notice he's getting more bothered. From that position, the only time I want you to ask him to back up is when he can stand still on a loose rein. If he's trying to go forward, it's the wrong time to pull back on both reins, okay? So when you're here, the first cue for the backup is you're gonna rotate your seat a little deeper in the saddle, and then watch how slow my fingers close on the reins to go into that backup. And as long as I've presented it to him this way, he hasn't really given me much guff about it, okay? If he gives you some attitude, he tosses his head, he swishes his tail and gives you a little bit of resistance because he's got a little bit of that in there, I want you to bend his head to the side here like this, and I want you to use your leg and move his hindquarters. Or if you were ever riding him and maybe you asked for something a little fast and you felt him lurch forward, you would get him bent down with one rein and yield the hindquarters until everything softens and settles. You picking up what I'm putting down? Yeah. Do you feel comfortable giving it a try? Yeah. You sure? You don't have to. It's totally up to you. Like, if a 1 was like you were terrified to get out of the car to saddle your horse up today, and a 10 was like you're like, yahoo, let's go jump the fence out of the arena and go ripping around. 1 to 10, where would you put yourself? Perfect. That's perfect because you have to be the leader for your horse. So if you're scared, you shouldn't be on him. You should get off. Because at the moment that you start feeling scared, your body is not going to react in the right ways and you're going to get tighter and you're going to put more brace and there's more risk of something going wrong if you're afraid. At any minute, if you get afraid, you can get off of him and we can go back to doing groundwork and then make a decision if I should get back on, like, did something just spook him a little bit and now it's gone and we're fine? But you got to listen to that instinct that you have inside you that says this is dangerous, because there's not really anything safe about riding horses. Riding horses is a dangerous hobby, okay? But we can do dangerous things carefully by being prepared with good preparation on the ground and getting good quality yields under saddle before we start getting things going faster. But you have to listen to that, your inner voice when it's telling you, okay? That's not imaginary. You're not being a wimp or a wuss. Like you have to listen to that and acknowledge that. Make sense? Yeah. Okay. Did you notice when you were riding him and things went bad, did it go bad slowly or did it go bad real quick? Real quick. My point is, you don't have time to get into a safe position when things are going bad. You're relying on already being in a safe position. Loose rein? So we're not going to ride with contact. You're going to bend him with one rein if you need to. So show me the relaxed rein. So bend him, inside leg, walk a little circle. Now give your hand and ask him to keep his head there. So you're picking it up and then you're releasing your hand. Yeah, you feel that? Doesn't that feel nice and soft? So if he ever gets bothered while you're riding him, but he's not doing anything dramatic, you're just like, I feel him change and he's a little bit worried, go to the relaxed rein position, okay? If he acts on it and he throws his head up or he swishes his tail or he does a little kick out or a little lurch forward, he does something that was like, oh, you just kind of took over there, you're gonna then bend him and do a hindquarter yield. So show me that one. So slide your hand down, lift and slide, same move with the reins, and put your leg on. Don't have his head too far around. Move his hip around. Very good. Excellent. Those are your moves, okay? And what I would practice is when things are going well, walk, trot, and eventually canter, and just bend him down to relax rein, walk, trot, canter, bend him down to a hindquarter yield. And then the last one is throughout the ride, pepper in a backup. So let's try a backup right now. So hang on, hold your horses. Your first move for a backup should be you roll your hips a little deeper, yes. And now just slowly pick up a feel on the reins, a little more. Does that feel different than how he normally backs up?
Yeah.
Yeah? What was different about how he backed up there?
When I usually back him up, he's very hard on the bit. He kind of pulls back on you. But
That felt very soft, didn't it?
yeah, he felt very soft. He put his head down like that and he slowly backed
Yeah.
up.
Good. Let's do it again. Take your time. Sit. Go through the sequence. Very nice. So I want you to pepper that in very frequently. Okay? You can't go wrong with having a horse that backs up really well. How did that feel to ride your horse again?
Pretty good. I mean, he did have some moments, but I fixed it and it didn't escalate from there.
Perfect. Exactly. That's the whole name of the game. It's not like he's fixed or cured right now. It's like there's a lot of work to do, but it's about layering in positive repetitions where things are going well and building some depth of understanding there. All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. We'll see you guys on the next one.